Hi, my name's Cheryl Adams, and I'm going to talk to you about labeling of GM food, which means genetically modified food. Oops. Food labels were introduced back in 1862 by President Lincoln. He established the Department of Agriculture. Since then, the FDA has made many changes to the labeling for food, drug, and cosmetics. USDA Organic was kind of introduced in 2002 with the National Organic Program. Certification is handled at a state level, nonprofit, and by private agencies. Organic is the only way that we know if our food is GMO free. The cost of organic is more because the supply is limited. Production is limited by the lack of machinery and as well as the labor force. More people are willing to work for the larger manufacturers for more money, and the lack of machinery is because these companies are smaller and do not make as much money. So why not alert our consumers about the GMOs? The consumers are the ones that buy the food. Consumers have the right to know what's in their food. Consumers may have illness or allergies from GMO products or the products that are mixed in with the GMO foods. Who grows GMOs? Well, in 2006, a study was conducted, and it shows that the United States grows 2/3 of the GM crops. The United States grows 134 million acres of GM crops. The second country is Argentina, and they are far behind the U.S. with 44 million acres. So obviously the United States does grow a tremendous amount of the GMO product, and we export that quite a bit. Europe does not allow, or there's a big huge uproar about the GMOs in Europe, but the United States does grow significant amounts of the GMO. Where is the genetically modified foods? Well, we feed the food to our livestock. The livestock will eat the corn or whatever else grain that they are given that have been modified, and these livestock are eating it, and then we eat the meat from these fed cows and beef, and then we also drink the milk. The chickens have been eating the grains, pigs, lamb, sheep, whatever else eat the grains. Breads are also potentially contaminated with GMs because of the grain. The rice is also a grain that will be contaminated. Potatoes, fruits and vegetables, and cotton, which cotton has many different uses, the cotton seed oil, but also on our clothing we could have modified products that would cause skin irritations and whatnot. So pigs and GMOs are very interesting because pigs are very similar to humans in a lot of how they digest foods, their cells and stuff like that. So a study was conducted, and it was containing 168 young pigs over a 23-week period, and it was conducted in both the U.S. and Australia. There was a 267% increase in stomach problems in females and an alarming 400% increase in males. And this was published in a peer-reviewed magazine. And I know a lot of times numbers and percentages can be altered or modified to show favoritism in one way or the other. But since this is a peer-reviewed magazine, I do feel that it was studied and investigated quite significantly. So these stomach problems can happen in humans as well, I believe. So livestock have been shown to have increased stomach problems, so just not the pigs. There is a decrease in fertility and births, which is kind of frightening because now you're running into problems with groups of how many cattle or milk cows you have for your farms. They are showing altered liver and pancreas function, which is also what is happening with a lot of the humans, is we're having liver and pancreas function alterations. Birds and bees and GMOs. I'm not going where you think I'm going with this. So birds and bees, there's been a huge declination of bee colonies across the United States, and it's been over a 20 or 25 year period, as well as the declination of the monarch butterfly and their colonies. Both of these critters do our cross-pollination for plants and trees and all sorts of different things that we eat and grow. And unfortunately, with these declination in these colonies, we're seeing that these cross-pollinations aren't happening as readily, and we see a huge decline in the bees population. Birds are also being harmed because they're eating the insects that are contaminated with the GM plants. And amphibians are also being affected, so lizards and frogs, even some fish, things like that, because they eat the contaminated bugs and stuff. So what do we use it for again? It's said to the insect-resistant crops. It's been produced for that. Drought-resistant crops as well. So those that in the areas where we're having some droughts, they feel that these GMO products will help with these crops that are drought-resistant now. Protects against viruses, viruses from whatever plants can get. Prevents tolerance to herbicides. The herbicides are what we spray on our plants and stuff too. What are the negatives of GMOs? The Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT, as it is more easily said. In time, these insects will resist the BT because, as you know, with anything, things build up a resistance to certain things. Cross-pollination of weeds with the BT creates super weeds. So now you have this BT, and now it's cross-pollinating with another weed, and so now you have these new weeds that are becoming a problem. Pollen drift, which is when pollen floats through the air from a genetically modified crop to a non-GMO crop, and now you have cross-contamination. It's very harmful to the wildlife because they eat the food, the plants and stuff like that. And harmful to the soil because if the wildlife are eating the plants and trees and stuff, and then they're eliminating their waste into the soil, now the soil can be contaminated, as well as the cross-pollination and the pollen drift. And then we are getting antibiotic resistance, so animals that are becoming sick and stuff are becoming resistant to some of the antibiotics that are being used. So what are the reasons for labeling? Well, allergens are introduced by engineering, for instance, soybeans. It has been reported that soybeans are engineered with nuts, in particular Brazil nuts, which cause a huge allergic reaction, anaphylaxis, even resulting in death. And then humans are now becoming resistant to antibiotics. We see a huge incline, or a huge gain or incline of people becoming resistant to antibiotics, which is not good because then it's really hard for them to get rid of disease in humans. And then there comes a moral or religious conflict because sometimes these genetically modified foods are contaminated and mixed with animal product either in liquid form or some other type of form, and they're mixed in with the regular food, but then no one knows this. And those people that are trying to be animal free are now being introduced without their knowledge to these animal products. This is unfair to the farmers, because farmers are being forced to sign contracts stating that they won't use the seeds and store their own seeds from year to year, making it hard for farmers to maintain their own crops with their seeds. It is very unfair to these farmers because now they're just a big, huge part of this big, huge conglomeration, and they can't just be the small-time farmer now. So I'm not saying don't use GM, but what I'm saying is we need labels on our food. The debate isn't necessarily about stopping the use of GM crops or food, but it is about labeling for safety. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and send them to me. I'd be more than happy to answer what I could for you. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. And if you have any concerns, I'd love to hear those too. Thanks for listening. Bye.